There's a drawing of Snoopy that you've probably never seen before, and that's because it was drawn custom for LMU by Charles Schulz. But how connected to the school was he? Charles Schulz is most famously known for writing the Peanuts cartoon, which started in 1950. Born in Minneapolis, he moved to Northern California in 1958, where he spent the rest of his life. The cartoon ran for nearly 50 years and became the most widely syndicated comic strip in history. Somewhere along the way, Schulz found himself connected to LMU in a number of ways. The first way is from the merger between Loyola University and Marymount College. Before Loyola Marymount was Loyola Marymount, it was two schools, Loyola University and Marymount College. The schools operated as single-sex organizations, with Loyola University being run by Jesuit priests and Marymount College being run by the Sisters of the Sacred Heart of Mary. The administrations of the two universities formally merged in 1973, but the students from both schools began living on the same campus and taking classes together in 1968. That's when this photo was gifted to the school, in 1968, to commemorate the affiliation of Marymount and Loyola, with the priests and the nuns being represented as Snoopy and Lucy. But that's not the only connection between LMU and Peanuts. In 2002, the original half-hour Christmas special was expanded to be a full hour. Bill Melendez, the director of the original half-hour show, was brought on to make a series of vignettes to help fill that extra time. And in the final scene of the vignettes, Sally runs into Charlie Brown's room, and there's one thing on the wall, an LMU pennant. To this day, it's a total mystery of why it was drawn there. Former LMU animation chair Tom Klein wrote of a few theories, including it being a reference to a starting point guard for LMU, who at the time was nicknamed Charlie Brown, or to instances of Charles Schulz himself drawing custom cartoons for Jesuit professors. Adding to the mystery, the animation camera that was used for the 2002 restoration was later donated to LMU by Melendez in 2005. Why it was given to LMU is still unknown, and Melendez passed away in 2008. LMU and Charles Schulz share a remarkable amount of connections. But did Schulz have a particular affinity for LMU, or is there some other explanation? I reached out to Stephen Lind, a professor at USC's Marshall School of Business and the author of A Charlie Brown Religion, exploring the spiritual life and work of Charles M. Schulz. When I showed him the photo of Schulz in 1968, he said the timing made a lot of sense.
The late 60s were a time in which all across the country, organizations that were faith-based organizations, local churches, were reaching out to Schulz for all sorts of requests to use Peanuts in their church publications. So this makes a lot of sense to me then that he was maybe invited down.
Schulz explored his religion a lot through Peanuts and was engaged religiously as well. Part of this was through his support for religious organizations. In 1966, for example, he granted permission for Loyola College Prep, a high school in Louisiana, to use Snoopy as their athletic mascot.
The example of a high school reaching out is so emblematic of the wide array of organizations and individuals that would reach out. Coincidentally, throughout his life, Charles Schulz had a fair amount of run-ins, you might say, with a whole variety of Catholic personalities. He disagreed on some theological points with Catholicism, but he kept finding himself in company.
So it seems like his relationship with LMU was about the same as any other religious organization at the time. But what about the pennant and the animation machine?
I don't know anything off the bat, but what it makes me curious about is whether or not it was perhaps not a Schulz connection, but perhaps a Bill Melendez connection.
So did Schulz have some sort of special connection to LMU?
It's certainly possible that there's a more unique relationship that is behind the specific references. That definitely happened with Schulz. It's also equally as possible, from what we know, that it is the byproduct of faith communities finding a home in Schulz's work and reaching out to have his involvement with them and him saying yes.
While LMU might not have been particularly special to Charles Schulz, it can confidently say that it secured a spot in Peanuts history.